So hello everybody. My name is Andreas Vassilakos. We come from the Illinois Institute of Technology. That's an engineering school in Chicago. I'm a master's student in the Cyber Forensics and Security program. That's an NSA and DHS accredited master's. This is my colleague.
Well, my name is Jose Luis. I'm from Spain, but I'm normally known as Pepe, so you can call me Pepe.
I'm a fellow of the Department of State, and we're working with Dr. Maurice Dawson. He's the director of cyber forensics in our university. The paper is called American Extremism and Terrorism on Social Media Platforms. So the past few months, we have some really dark pages in the history of our nation regarding domestic terrorism. And since we work with cyber security and crime prevention, we thought about starting to research on extremism and domestic terrorism. So that's pretty much the agenda for today. We're going to talk about the internet forums and how they're correlating with the rise of extremism, how the internet is layered and how this correlates with our research, what is open source intelligence, how we use it for our agenda and our research, and then we're going to explain all the algorithms we're trying to develop for prevention and identifying patterns of terrorism. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with the 4chan, 8chan, and Reddit. So all these are internet forums. They are used for entertainment by many people, but they also hide extremism, right-wing activities, and many propaganda. For example, 4chan has another sub-forum called 8chan that's more extreme. That was where they hosted all these manifestos that end up being attacks against our nation. The embodiment of all these activities is called the politically incorrect forums. You can find both in Reddit and 4chan. You can find things about neo-Nazism, how you can attack people of color, and that's where they post manifestos before the attacks. So our job today in our research for this semester was to actually identify these forums, start web scraping, find all this data, analyze them appropriately, and try to identify patterns so we can kind of escape future attacks. Okay, so people have a different perception of what the internet is actually. At least the majority of people. So there's these layers. Many people think that internet is only Facebook, Google, Wikipedia, YouTube, but actually there is more in this iceberg. So if we go deeper, there's the deep web. It's these websites that you have to have the index first in order to access them. That makes our job kind of harder because we have to actually dig deeper and find these sources. So there is things like private forums, private networks, even like hospital intranets, private medical records, research papers, they all belong in the deep web, but also there's things even deeper in the dark web that we have to use specific browsers called the Onion router to use for our research. You can also find illegal information and anonymous activities. Okay, so for our paper, we started using what's called open source intelligence. So open source intelligence is using publicly accessible data to analyze them and use them for our paper. This is the framework we used. Depending on what kind of publicly accessible data you want to access, you can select appropriately, and then you can follow the steps and the framework. It kind of leads you to observations. And my colleague is going to talk about our...
Okay, so I'm more or less here like the tech guy for this project. So I'm going to speak about our research thing we have now, at least our last steps about all this project. This is what I have called the research diagram, which is pretty simple. Let's say we need to get data, or these people, because we're investigating some massacres that have happened here. Let's say people that is doing those massacres is posting on Reddit, 4chan, and 8chan. They are posting actually that they are doing those massacres and that they are going to do that. So we are trying to follow their activity, build a profile on them, and then let's see what if we can follow them and find them. So basically, we get data from Reddit. At this point, we only have Reddit. We're still looking for getting data from 4chan and 8chan. It's kind of difficult, but we'll try. So let's say through a Python program, we get some raw data, which is actually posts from Reddit and comments within those posts. I call it raw data because it's not clean, it's not prepared, it's difficult to follow. So then we throw that data to some data preparation steps, which is cleaning data and prepare data, which means let's say we have a post with some comments, so separate each comment in each line so we can really look into sentences, words, and all that stuff, and it's easier to look for it instead of having just raw data. So with data, we're going to build an analysis and then get some results. So where's data coming from? Mainly Reddit has posts, 4chan and 8chan has threads. Which is important here is that 4chan and 8chan have been closed recently. They had been reopened and then they have been closed again. So it's kind of difficult to follow the activity of someone inside 4chan and 8chan. Actually, there's people holding those threads from 8chan and 4chan on some archives, but the problem now is those archives are not publicly accessible sometimes. And even though we're looking for information inside politically incorrect or politically incorrect information inside those threads, there are people that do not keep those threads in their computers. Let's say archives are like private databases for threads. That's the problem now. Another problem we have is the sample. We have to build like a big sample of data where there is information that's actually valuable and not stupid information that we don't need. So the sample is mainly what we have, the current sample we have now. What we have done is we have selected a massacre, that's the Christchurch massacre in New Zealand, 15th March this year. And what we are doing is we are actually recovering posts from Reddit from 8th March and to 22nd March, so it's like 1 week before and 1 week later. We think we have actually a big sample because there's only 26 records. That means there are only 26 posts in Reddit within those dates, but there are actually a lot of more comments inside, so it's actually a big sample.
We're trying to identify this time here, so we're trying to go 1 week before, 1 week after to see if they post anything related to the manifestos that they already posted in 8chan, 4chan. And since Reddit they're still available these posts, we can try to discover something that way.
Yeah. Actually, Reddit is I think for now is the easy thing. Yeah, 4chan, 8chan are going to be much more difficult because threads and posts, let's say 4chan and Reddit do not work in the same way, and they do not store data in the same way, so that's complicated to manage. We could have taken all posts within 2019, but it would be crazy because we would have like 1 million posts and I don't know, 1 trillion comments. That's probably impossible, and it's not valuable information. We would like to get some more samples, like the desired sample. This is the one we have now, this one, and we are actually scraping through some more shootings and all that stuff. This one is in El Paso, in Texas. It was the 3rd of August, so we are taking data from 27th July to 10th August this year again. So basically, the analysis, what are we going to do? Let's say this is the algorithm, this is the important part. We still need to develop a strong, stable algorithm. These are some ideas we have using right now and that we think they will work, but we are open to some new ideas. So first of all, we're trying to do word analysis, which is counting words and checking the meaning of those words. For example, let's say someone in Reddit is using the word extermination, for example. So that word is meaningful for us because it means they might be related to white terrorism and this kind of stuff. So we might need to count the number of times that word is repeated within posts and comments in the sample we have. Another thing we can build that we are actually building is a word list, like a common list of words that can be that are used or that can be used to detect this kind of terrorist activity. As it says, we're looking for keywords inside posts, but we are actually looking for comments too, because that's the important thing, that they have like conversations inside posts and threads. So that's the way we have to find them. We can analyze phrases too. That's kind of difficult because we have to link phrases between comments and posts, and that's kind of difficult part. And finally, which is really the interesting thing, is that we can build a user profile based on some patterns. If we have the patterns, then it will be easy to look for them in other type of social media. For example, like Twitter or Facebook that they used to.
And the other thing is, I'm going to go back to what we said earlier, that anytime the constantly disappears. So for 1 week you're going to see, oh, it's up again, let's use it. But the data is also not available anymore. So it's not a really consistent source of data for us to use. And the other thing is, we just discovered that some forums like Discord, it's like a chat application, they spread all this propaganda against specific races, specific genders, and they try to, let's say, promote their white terrorism agenda. And that's the other thing, we cannot really have access to the real-time chat from the Discord, but we're trying to find a way to kind of bypass it and steal this data kind of.
Yeah, let's say now, like the big challenge now is to get data from the internet and to get it like in a legitimate way, let's say, and in a fast way, because it disappears. It's like, let's say it's volatile. Okay, so if there any questions, we are going to show a video, like 1 minute video. Can you put it?
Yes, sure.
What we have for now done is a simple Python script where I'm just running the script and showing you what I have used for now, like our resources. Yeah. Okay, so this is video. This is something simple. I'm running back the script. I am using an API I have found for Reddit, which is quite nice. This is the way I can dive into Reddit and look for information. It actually gets like 26 seconds, just run it. I think this one is 26 seconds, because Reddit moves posts within Reddit, so it's difficult to get a stable time. And the code is something simple we have for now. We are going to expand the code so it looks nicer, and we can, let's say we would like to develop like a basic API, we can search on the internet with the API, and then we can get more information and build more tools that in the script. And this is basically the code. This is something simple. Then we build data. And finally, well, it has taken like 26 seconds. Can you stop it? This is what we call raw data, which is, for example, these are the lines that we have built. In the script builds this, which is raw data. We only have 26 records. That's what I mean. This is only getting to 26, but this is like the title of the post. For example, one post in Reddit, which has this ID, which is a way I have to find the post, which is not meaningful now. But this is the guy that is actually posting this thing. This is the title, and then this is a bunch of, let's say, trash comments, trash data, all that stuff that we have to clean. So we are more or less like, we are still getting raw data, and our next step would be cleaning this, developing the algorithm, and then with the algorithm, let's see what results do we obtain, and then we do things with the algorithm, we rethink, etc.
And why is this research important? Because the one thing people don't realize is that history repeats itself. So we have to start learning about history, and we've seen where hate speech goes to in the past, especially us come from Europe. It doesn't really turn out well for us. So we're trying to evade this scenario, especially in a world where everything's hyper-connected, everything spreads in a matter of seconds, so you can get something viral, but also you can spread this hate speech really fast. It's really needed to kind of moderate this behavior, also make these profiles of people and try to evade these acts of terrorism against our nation. So,
I know, is there any question on this?
So one of the things that we see a lot is the interaction between sort of white supremacist ideology and the misogynist, like incel or red pill type of ideology. And I'm just wondering if you intend to expand your net on Reddit, so to speak, because there are a lot of forums on Reddit.
sure.
Related ideologies.
I'm not really familiar in depth with this ideology you describe. I have been mentioned what it is, but I don't really know. I'm serious, I don't know. Would you mind elaborating on kind of what it is about, or?
Yeah, I mean, not to get real deep into it, but
Actually, yeah.
So my question, can everyone hear me in the room here as I'm talking? So, incel or red pill ideology is basically men, a lot of times white men, but not exclusively, feel very misogynist towards women, especially because they feel like they cannot date or have relationships with them, which they feel entitled to. And a lot of the sort of new generation of mass shootings and or attacks are being committed by people who not only have the sort of domestic terrorism motive, but also have bias against women. So you'll see them targeting sorority houses or areas where women congregate, or they see people on the street, like a group of women, and they'll attack them. So it intersects. Like, for example, I think Elliot Rodger is a good example of that. So I was just wondering if you were... Oh, explain who Elliot Rodger is? Okay. So Elliot Rodger is an individual who perpetrated an attack on sorority houses in California. He was basically, as I said, angry that he felt entitled to interact with women and they didn't want that. And so he targeted a sorority house, which is a female organization for college students, with his car, and I believe he also had a gun as well. So you see people like that espousing both the misogynistic area of it and also the sort of terroristic motivations, where they're then committing these atrocities. And they tend to kind of link in with one another. So you'll see the misogyny, you might see anti-Semitism or racism, things like that, which would intersect with the projects you're currently researching. So my question was, there are more boards on Reddit than just, for example, politically incorrect, that could be scraped or mined for this type of content. And I was wondering if you planned to expand your net at all to do that.
I'm not 100% aware of this situation. I'm sorry about this. That's an interesting approach. Obviously, it's another embodiment of the same monsters, the same hate against people. It doesn't matter if it's not a piece of cake. And actually, I was reading this article in the morning. This girl was recruited by this white girl from the group. She started dating this eating grow guy. This guy turned into fraternity. And he gave her hallucinated that drug was going or down. And she actually got recruited by this, that ideology you were describing, exactly what you're saying, and she just got out of this situation. Of course, after course, different aspects of what you're describing, that was still I don't know.
We can talk more about what you want.
Absolutely.
Actually, the question is for you. Yes, well, I mean, everybody's talking about data here and there, and the different ways they are gathered and they are scored, they are used, classified based on relevant data versus noise, whatever. So, but my question here is, everything starts from the beginning with the quality of the data. So, in this particular project, how this is gathered at the beginning, before, because you're trying to find something, some sort of pattern, something that is going to tell you about this behavior, for example. So what is the beginning? Is a lot of data handling by, well, actually being done by hand, and then scoring or structuring from unstructured? What is going on before actually you use software or something? Then because you are talking about then to use it for machine learning and AI and so on, but the quality has to be at the very, very beginning if you want to get something meaningful. So how do you guys handle that?
We cannot really have any bias, we just get what it is, we just analyze it. What we wish it was sanitized with the sensors, we should almost certain diffusion will be no bias and accurate, but the nature of what we do is pretty much create profiles, or at least that's the long-term plan. I don't know if we'll be able to sanitize it, that's your question. We're trying to keep it as direct. Like, what we get is what we're going to analyze. I don't know if
But
that's...
It's actually...
what you get. How do you know what you get is good data? Because that's going to be the basis of what's before or what you're going to get at the end.
Let's
So,
say,
and everybody talks about that, and my question has not been answered.
let's say this process the process we have shown is not it's not like a cycle, but let's say data analysis and preparation can be focused on like a cycle process. So let's say the first thing you capture data is like you don't know what you have captured, so you have to let's say give one round to the whole process, like you prep data, you clean data, you analyze data, you get results, and based on your results, which is what we need to get now, you start again. Maybe you see, because it's data we have taken now, is we don't know what's inside. Actually, it's not even clean. So
you're using software that is
yeah, we're using
predetermined to do certain tasks,
Mhm.
such that you can get some results.
So for example, like last May we had a paper published about what's to do with crime in Chicago. So the reason why I'm telling you this is because, okay, we knew this is the top 10 most criminally inclined areas, so we know what to target. Also, we know what kind of crimes we're going to target. So it's easier for us, that was easier for us back then, to make some assumptions and conclusions. But here is, that's something new that just happened, like all these acts. So all these acts just happened. So we're trying to use specific keywords that relate to crime and terrorism, and that's why we have the keyword we have actually mentioned, but we cannot be certain yet. That's why it's a research in progress for us.
let's say as a simple example, something simple, you're looking for a black ball in a box full of red balls. But at the beginning, you don't know the color of any ball. So what you do is the whole process would give you the color of all the balls. And then you, from the very top of the box, you start putting red balls out until you find the black ball. The black ball. More or less, this is the process, like, so simple.
And of course, we're using like the keywords we mentioned. Some words are universally accepted that are bigotry inducing or hate speech inducing, like massacre, or you mentioned, for example, like misogyny. All these type of words we know that, well, they're not nice words. So we're gonna use specific keywords to kind of limit and narrow our results. If would this answer your question, kinda? But our job is not to make a profile and actually the psychological aspect of a person. It's actually take the data and... Sure.
We usually go into what is the standard, the normal words, the ones that everybody uses. But there's those kind of people that are I've seen, and that they are shy.
Sure.
Hidden somewhere, and those outliers are not problematics. So what
Sure.
I'm trying to say is.
And of course, there's the aspect of nation like cyber warfare. Because you mentioned cybersecurity, this is not cybersecurity. That's not cybersecurity. So, for example, cyber warfare, as you mentioned it, when you go to the nation level, nationwide, there's psychological warfare. How can you influence different nations with specific posts? So there's instances of different countries attacking other countries and actually conduct this type of psychological warfare with certain posts through Facebook, through Twitter, through Reddit. So even there, we cannot be sure yet. We cannot be sure, hey, this Facebook event was created by X country, but we can have some signs that kind of, well, so, kind of know that, okay, that's kind of suspicious. Let's see what's going on, Yeah. We cannot be certain. That's the answer, Yeah. But we're trying our best, so. Yeah. So, any other questions? Go ahead.
For the analysis, what tools are you to use?
So basically, we will rely on Python. I think it's something fast that we know, and it's like at this point we need to develop faster than we think we could have developed. Because data, as I have said, is mainly volatile in some threads in 4chan and 8chan. So we're going to use Python, and then we will use RapidMiner, which is actually incredible to analyze data and get like quick results. Let's say quick results.
Because we were trying to make like this word count aspect, so we can create word clouds instantly through RapidMiner, but the long-term plan for us it would be like to create a model to train it and start identifying it automatically and kind of have a natural language processing and see, hey, this is kind of suspicious. Let the model handle it, have the API in there, just start analyzing it automatically. So we don't have to actually do the manual labor anymore ourselves. So it's still a way for us to test different things, see what works, what doesn't work, and eventually go to this final step of automating everything. So, any other questions? Okay. Thank you for your time, everybody. It's really nice to be here.